it wanted me to, let's see if I can get the lighting right, get the angle right. It made me do this in portrait mode, so it is what it is. I got my guitar shelf back here. I'm going to do a podcast. I'm going to write this right now in my awesome handwriting. Back in 5 human minutes. Okay, you see this right here. Back in 5 human minutes. Who knows if it shows up backwards for you? But my son just got here. I was just going to say hi real quick. My intention is to do a live cast and discuss some important topics, but I have to be totally prepared. 719 came up pretty quick, so give me a moment. I'm also going to do a podcast, so I will be back in 5 minutes. I promise. Don't go anywhere. I mean, don't wait around for me, but come back in 5 minutes, and then we'll chill. Almost done. Just getting coffee. right, I'm here. I'm back. I got my brew. I made a cup of coffee because I needed a cup of coffee. I just wanted to say thanks for anybody for waiting or for coming back or whatnot. Not that I guess it matters. Thanking people for watching my videos is kind of a weird thing still. But at any rate, today I'm going to be recording a podcast at the same time. This will be kind of a live podcast. So if anybody misses any of this live cast, you can go back and listen to it in the podcast version. And that will be available on, as usual, all platforms. It's free. It's not something that's charged for. I pay for it monthly so I can distribute it for free. Therefore, I don't have any sponsors. As I always say, I only accept Patreon or kind gestures and nice words. So today we're going to be talking about, oh boy, make sure my lighting's right here. I don't really like live casts. I know some people use really fancy cameras. I don't have one. I use my cell phone. I go very old school on this, and I want to say this is going to change. I have the intention on this channel of really growing it to something now. I'm determined. I've had imposter syndrome for far too long. I felt like an idiot, and I'll explain why. Make sure this thing's going here. So, welcome to the 15-minute free thinking podcast. I will be your host, Carpo. As usual, just me and my lonesome self, pathetic, with my own opinions and nobody else to counter them. I say that because over the past 3, 4, 5 years, I've been saying constantly on this channel, I'm going to go out and start interviewing strangers. Or I don't say it very often, but it's an intention in my mind to go out and talk to people about random things, their jobs, whatever it might be. And that was kind of something I wanted to do. Now, there are a few channels that really do that well, and I feel like it's just kind of overplayed, especially like, say, for example, go out and talk to homeless people. There's only so much you can learn about homeless people and their situations. So it ends up coming down to individuals and their specific situations. And there's a channel called Soft White Underbelly, many of you probably know of, which is phenomenal. They talk about, have some deep discussions, some of them quite disturbing. I guess my storage is full on here, so that sucks. I guess I'll have to turn it. I won't be able to do a podcast. So this will, I guess, just be a YouTube live cast. That's probably better anyway. I let fate kind of decide how shit works out. And that brings me to the discussion and the title of this video. Where are all the rational fucking voices out there? Where are all the people who really have something to say, but don't say it with such arrogance or hubris or a desire for money, a constant bickering and begging for cash, through advertisements, sponsorships, and Patreon, of course, just like I always mention. I'm not going to deny that people who create content would like to get some sort of a compensation, but I don't expect it. And that allows me to say whatever the fuck I want. And that's really the kind of the crux of this discussion I want to have here. It's about the fact that I keep my channel authentic by not accepting sponsorships or advertisements so I can say whatever I want. But at the same time, it's because this isn't about money. This is about talking to people. This is about interaction. This is about my ability to go online, just set up a live cast like I did, and talk to people around the world live and have them give a shit what I say and be interested in the topics that I'm discussing. Now, I want to make it clear, this isn't about like some arrogance about thinking that my points are more important than anyone else's, because they're absolutely not. I'm full of shit. insofar as I realize that the things I talk about are usually my opinions, usually off the cuff, and I rarely add any, you know, uh, what would they call them? You know, those I brain fart, but um, I don't talk about topics that I have to defend and protect by facts and figures, but I would like to. In other words, I don't know. I have resisted talking about controversial topics for the very simple reason of not wanting to come across as somebody who's just talking about something just because it's popular or in the news. And I do pay attention to some of this shit. I do pay attention to most of the media. I just avoid, and I mentioned this at the beginning of the year. My goal at the beginning of the year was to avoid any news clip, or if I see a YouTube video that has to do with an individual, especially if it's a politician, I will not click on it. I watched nothing about the Trump indictments. I'm not interested in Biden or his kid. I know these things are going on. I'm aware of the fact that things are happening in the world. But I came to some conclusions in my mind that it was a waste of space, a waste of energy to be utterly overly focused on everything that happens. I spend a lot of time sitting quietly in my car when I'm on my way to work and back thinking, just thinking. I don't listen to music anymore in my car, rarely. If I do, I'm listening to a podcast. And every September to October and into the winter, I end up going into this kind of podcast learning mode. This is something I've discovered over the last several years, especially the last decade or two. My rituals and routines, heavy metal and rap, maybe in the fall, Grateful Dead in the summer. But I keep it light in the summer. When it comes to information, I tend to just try to have fun, not think much of it. But I'm always processing shit, and I want to learn as much as I can about the world. I want to understand as much as I can about people. And at the age of 47, I'm still trying to figure out which aspect of these different practices and ideals I want to believe in and understand. In other words, I have developed no beliefs, and I have no consensus group on what's true and what's not. It's a matter of just day to day, hey, this is interesting. What's over here? What can I learn right here? How can I process, all the shit that I'm learning in my life and be able to regurgitate that in some sort of a viable, channel that people can learn from. And that's where I get stuck. Bringing me back to imposter syndrome. But, sometimes we just feel like the things that we talk about are pointless. And maybe they are. But then I think about what is important, what really does matter. And over the last several years, I've been watching a ton of shit unfold in the podcast sphere, like from Joe Rogan to every other podcaster trying to emulate Joe Rogan. I'm fascinated with why Joe Rogan is such a popular podcaster. And it's not about Joe. That's the thing that I've been trying to convey to people when they say, oh, fuck Joe Rogan, he thinks this and he thinks that, I won't listen to his show. It's like, here's a guy who has 2 to 3 hour long shows, uncut, with a dynamic person, whoever it might be. Could be a politician, could be a musician, but somebody bearing their heart on the microphone to the world. When you do that, a lot comes to light. When I make a video talking to you, or when I do a live cast for an hour or two, everything I say, I leave up, and all of this is coming straight from my heart. I could say something really stupid and be, quote, canceled if I had, say, 1 million subscribers or a huge following. Somebody talked about this earlier in a podcast. I don't recall. I think it was, I'll get into the different podcasters, but in an interview with some guy who was saying that he's like, if you have 1,000 followers, people might, you know, not bat an eye if you say something controversial. But if you have 1 million followers, say, every single thing that you talk about or mention can be used against you in some way, shape, or form. Things can be taken out of context. The more famous and well known a podcaster becomes, for example, the more people, internet quote sleuths, which are just people with nothing better to do, will dig into their past to try to find something else negative about them. And that's exactly what happens with, say, Joe Rogan. They'll find some out of context clip of him being, quote, transphobe or racist or whatever it might be. It's ridiculous, the things people say. But missing the entire point of having a podcast with somebody who is willing to. Whoops, my phone's slipping. Damn it. It fell off. Anyway, take a sip of my espresso here. Sure is good, and I sure am grateful to have coffee available to me. I have gratitude for free global trade, as fucked up as it is, and as much as I know that in 10 years from now, coffee might not even be available. I looked down, the first comment I saw was Bob, weep, grana, weep, ninny-bon. That's my buddy Kevin Casey there. Him and I grew up together. I've known him since he was 12 and I was like 14 or something. And I would like to, before I continue, do my usual routine analysis of comments. If I can find my glasses here. Here's my fancy funky glasses. Wow, the screen looks a lot bigger than I see. There's a lot more comments than I can answer, but I would like to like to at least say hello to everyone. Blessed Man, OU812, good to see you, my friend. He says, how have you been? Any plans to go camping soon? Dude, yeah, I would like to go camping. I've been very busy. My wife's mom passed away last week, and we've been dealing with funeral arrangements and stuff like that, but that's not, of course, a reason not to go camping, but rather just that it's fall now, and it's cold. My coworker was going to go camping this weekend with somebody, and the other guy flaked because it was too cold, and I'm like, I don't blame him. It's getting down into the 20s and the 30s in the mountains. So no, I would really like to, though. Rob Stoltz, good to see you, my friend. He says, out of curiosity, anyone, feel completely lost in where to go to life right now? Yes, absolutely. I'm feeling that way. My job will be ending soon, as far as my boss will be moving to Mexico and kind of giving up the company. And camera keeps slipping down. Boy, I look pretty shitty, don't I? That's all right. It's life. It's difficult. And that's something we all need to work out together. And that's when I started this cast, it was about people. My intention was to talk about people who I felt have helped me kind of navigate, but also there's very few people out there who I feel can really help us find the truth, find our own truth. It's something we have to do ourselves. We can have gurus and people who give us advice and inspiration, and I still need that, like we all do. But it's very hard to find voices that aren't self-censoring, and I'll get to that. I'm going to continue reading the comments down here first. It's good to see you, Rob and Garrett Hikes. Message retracted. Damn it, I hate it when people do that before I can read it. Hello, Leslie. It's good to see you. Sponsored by Nature. Has anyone seen The Walking Dead missing limbs and having huge open wounds in Kingston, Philly? Nope. Well, I mean, you're probably talking about people taking that trank shit or something. I try not to pay attention. Taylor Swift. Good to see you, Harrison and Scott Friss. And it's good to see you, Chris. And Kevin, of course. Just a hippie drinking his latte. Yeah, see, I love it when my subscribers remember that shit. It's like, just a hippie sipping his latte on a fine afternoon in the Portland area here. I mean, I consider myself a liberal, and the funny thing is that I can't even talk about certain topics without people assuming. If I were to say one of my opinions, let's say, that's not considered liberal, it's all of a sudden, I've heard this so many times. That's a right wing talking point. Like, to me, when somebody says that, it's one of the dumbest phrases I've ever heard. Honestly, a right wing talking point. The thing to remember is that all different types of people have opinions, and goddamn phone, piece of shit. All people have opinions, and all people have different views. Like my buddy Kevin, I was mentioning earlier on here, he tends to lean more right, but he's really more center than most liberals. Like, it's crazy how really balanced most of my friends are. I have a friend who's really liberal and a friend who's really conservative on, with appearance, but when you break it down to the discussions of what matters, a right-wing talking point might be, we need to work harder, or if, in some cases it would be like something about mandates or lockdowns. That I've heard it on that one too, and I can't talk about that situation yet, the COVID thing, because it just gets censored on YouTube, and it's really fucked up. Even at this point, I can't talk about how hoodwinked people were, and how, I've just been watching this whole booster program unroll as people are complaining because their insurance aren't covering the $120 shots they're getting. And I'm like, with all that happened during COVID, if people aren't paying attention now and they're still just saying, well, it is what it is, I'll just trust authority, they're really missing out on reality and what's actually happening. But it's not just some conspiracy, it's just money, Anyway, I should finish up on the comments and not get into that one. I want to get to podcasting and the discussions I've found useful, because I want to help that. Hello, Kapooks. It's good to see you, my friend. And who's Feisty One? No. Oh no, it's. Do I have just somebody who wants to just comment random shit? I've got a child on here or something. Anyway, looking for something to listen to so I don't have to listen to my own thoughts, said Kapooksy. Check out Lex Friedman, LEXFRIEDMAN. Friedman? Yeah, that's how it's spelled. Lex Friedman has some great podcasts with random people. His way of going about things is so mellow, relaxed, and to the point. And honestly, before I made this live cast, I wanted to come up with at least a couple people to recommend. There were only 3 podcasts. I mentioned Rogan earlier because Rogan has just such a wide variety of topics. I don't like all of them. I think some of his guests are total fucking buffoons. And I think a lot of the time, Joe, like, I facepalm when I'm listening to Rogan's podcasts. I'm like, oh my God, Joe, you're fucking so stupid sometimes. But he's really smart, but he's curious. That's what matters. He did UFC. He was doing the Fear Factor crap when I was a kid. And when I found out he was doing podcasting, I'm like, what do I care about the Fear Factor guy? Like, he was a douche. He didn't know shit. When he was out there doing, Hollywood shit, I was out researching occult knowledge and mysteries of the past. But that was back when I was more arrogant. Everybody has different world knowledge. Everybody understands things on a different level. And I realized it was about the guests. But Lex Friedman is friends with him, and they have interviewed each other on their individual podcasts. Phenomenal. The one I've been listening to lately, who, if you're a man who's having issues being a man, and I sorry to say, I've looked, and 97% of my audience is men. So what's up, dudes? And hello, ladies, as well. Leslie, I saw. Let's just say my channel's for everyone, but I know a lot of young men, have asked me for advice and things, and I'm very cautious. I don't give advice on topics that I'm not aware of. But there's one podcaster who's kind of coming up in the ranks who I was super sus about at first. The dude seemed to be a little bit of an issue. He seemed very right leaning. His name's Chris Williamson. But then I started watching him, and he's actually, whoops. Hold on, I'm going to see if I can block this person. Remove, hide user on this channel. There we go. Sorry, if you post a bunch of stupid shit like a fucking baby, I'm going to block your ass. Chris Williamson has interviewed some really interesting people, and a lot of them tend to be people that people might consider right-leaning, quote, right-wing talking points, but really they're just people who want to understand why it's so hard to just be, for example, a white male in today's world, even though the white male is supposed to be the one who doesn't have an issue because we have, preferential treatment and all of this. My brother mentioned he wanted to do a podcast about woke, and I'm curious to know if my subscribers would like to hear that, because I haven't done any interviews with people or podcasts with anybody else, a couple, one with Joel and stuff, but imagine doing, a live broadcast with my brother. I would be more on the end of saying that the issues of today surrounding the term woke, it's just because it's taken out of context and completely semantics, right? The way that it's used, the way that everybody has to defend everyone else without actually understanding the implications of many of the laws that have been put forward, which have actually benefited minorities, and as well as the gay community. When I was a kid, gays were not coming out of the closet was just becoming a term when I was in my teens and 20s. Now it's just nothing. It's not even a big deal. Like, we have made a lot of progress, and I'm trying to understand why society can't see the progress we've made, and why many people, especially on the left, I hate to say it, continue to delve into all the shit that's wrong. And with Chris Williamson, with some of the interviews, the people he's interviewed, I heard somebody discussing that it's like a hatred, a brewing frustration a lot of people have, yet in their minds, they've set themselves up as peaceful people, mellow people. Therefore, in order to take out that rage, you go scream and protest and hold a sign and maybe yell in somebody's face because of their beliefs. Not even because they've done anything, but just because they have the balls, the gall to speak and have their own opinion. And this has been happening in college campuses nationwide as speakers who are coming to talk become banned from the colleges because the students don't want them there. At some point, the faculty started supporting, basically deciding who would come speak and who wouldn't. This is interesting because this term, which I'd never heard before a few years back, they call platforming. What is platforming? I'm sure you've all heard of it. It's where you supposedly, it's a word that really shouldn't exist. In a debate, two different people talk about their own topics and their own opinions. Platforming is supposedly giving a platform to someone who nobody should listen to. And this has been pushed on the right-wingers for a long time. I'm not a conservative, by the way. I just find this, it's just embarrassing that the left has done these things and that they have the gall to call themselves liberals while trying to intrude on people's personal lives. The whole mandate thing and the vax thing, it really showed the true nature of how cowardly and scared a lot of people are, left and right. And the politics have just become absurd. I mean, I'm just so sick and tired of hearing people complain about every fucking thing that happens. I even had, and we find ourselves falling into debates about it when it's not even worth having a debate. Like I mentioned earlier about, we've had a lot of progress, and even with racism, I was talking with someone the other day about racism, and they were talking about how it needs to be stopped, and there's all these white supremacists, and that it's an issue, this whole systemic racism thing. And I said, well, there are people who are racist, and then there are things within the system that oppress minorities, but also classism is a huge issue, which isn't talked about. But we've been working on many of these issues, and the way to do it in this system we have now, the only way to change this is through two things: either education of the people or systemic change through legal change. And people used to sacrifice a lot to stand up for what they believed, mowing people down for their beliefs. The police would beat kids with batons and shoot them. There's some the Ohio issue, Neil Young wrote a song about it. But today it's much more mundane, much more mellow. People have it pretty fucking easy right now. And I've seen such extreme outrage that people have about shit that they can't even control and shit that doesn't even matter. But my thing is this: what is the solution? This is something that I learned a long time ago. I don't remember what book I was reading, but they were saying, everybody can find a million complaints in this world, but if you don't have a solution to that problem, shut the fuck up. If you have a point to make as to this is what we should do, then do it. And that might be legal action, that might be personal action, that might be gathering a group of people or signing a petition. Back in 2016, when the DEA wanted to make kratom illegal, we didn't just go out and complain on Twitter about it. We went to the DEA's website. We emailed and messaged all of the different officials within the different, counties, and our governors and senators, people who wouldn't otherwise even know about the issue. And guess what? We got them to actually sign it and get the DEA to back off. It was fascinating. It was a time when I felt like I was actually part of making a change, through paperwork. I hate doing that shit, but we did it. And kratom is still legal to this day. They didn't have a chance. They didn't realize the type of, pressure that would be put on them, because they didn't realize how many people took kratom. And that was before I was even a vendor, I think. But I remember that time well. And I remember fighting. I remember my kratom getting confiscated, like 25 kilos at the border. Maybe it was 50 kilos. And the DEA sent me a Customs and Border Protection sticker that said, "You'd lost, here's how much kratom we seized from you because it was labeled improperly. And here's what we think it's worth." And I was just like, fuck. Never got it back. And anyway, I could get into the discussion about drugs and drug laws if y'all want, but that's up to you. I'm going to finish reading the comments so I can catch up, because I don't do this to talk to myself. I do this to fucking talk to you guys. Blessed Man, thank you for the donation, my friend. That is fucking epic. I really appreciate you. I can't say it enough, Yep. It's, Kevin says Leslie used to be a pretty popular dude's name. It was, indeed. But I know Leslie from the channel, so I know it's a girl. Garrett says, do you believe in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? Believe in him? I think he was a dude, for sure. But I don't know what you mean by believe in. You'd have to be more specific, I guess. Redacted is a great channel. Hello, you're about to be. I'm reading the comments. I always have to inform y'all. Do you believe in the King of King Christ? Okay. Yeah, there was a Bible before the other Bible. She says, Leslie says, I was so confused as the left says my body, my choice in regards to abortion, but not to the jibby jab. Thank you, Leslie. That is a discussion I would love to have right now. But I can't really talk about it too deeply, and I have to be very cautious. I have been a liberal and a left winger for the fact that I have to be something. And let me back up here. I've always considered myself an independent. I am an independent when it comes to politics, religion. I don't believe in the left or the right. I don't believe in the, Christianity versus Satanism even. I think they all are just people's way. Here's the thing way I feel about religion. It's people's way of just finding some connection and community. When I was younger, I hated religion and I thought it needed to be abolished. I thought people should eliminate it from their lives because it was a negative influence and it caused wars. Since then, 20 years ago, I've educated myself and realized that honestly, it's secularism that caused even more problems. In other words, religion, as many of the problems as it caused, like the Crusades, millions of people were killed, it's nothing compared to what happened under, I think, Mao Zedong um, um, or Lenin, I think, over in Russia. These ideas of communism and going and raiding farms and taking them over in the name of the people. In other words, instead of letting God decide, the government decides. It became really complicated. But this idea that secularism breeds anything better has been laid bare. And I respect religion because it keeps people balanced. I'm not religious myself, but when I started to see what the left was doing, and that was the point I was getting at, I started reading more about this and found out that it seems to be part of our brain that wants to find some connection to a higher power or a belief system. And if we can't find that through God or some truth beyond and bigger than ourselves, then we will focus it right here on earth. And people become religious through politics and through, like we were talking about earlier, the term like woke, like this idea that if I'm quote woke, I'm somehow in the kingdom of heaven. Now I know that sounds extreme, but it's really, I'm in the graces of the right people, the right side. I'm fascinated with how many people I've seen leave comments and discussions where they really think that all conservatives are all bad people, horrible people. But there's just as many conservatives who think all liberals are like baby eaters. And I'm just like, dude, this is 2023. We have, on average, half the nation voting for one side or the other. Get the fuck over thinking one side is right or wrong. Like, it's time to move forward. I really believe it. So, it's funny. I mentioned YouTube I was going to try to find a few YouTube channels to recommend because I mentioned the podcast, Rogan, Friedman, and Chris Williamson. They're the only ones I've really been watching lately, but there are so many others that I love to listen to. Some of them are cringe liberals, and some of them are cringe conservatives complaining about each other, and I listen to it all. Like, I don't believe in platforming or just ignoring somebody because I think they might be lunatic. Fuck, I'll even listen to Alex Jones once in a while. There was a time when I listened to him a lot. I read his inspiration was William Cooper or Bill Cooper, who wrote about Area 51 and all the aliens and the government conspiracy shit long before Alex. Alex was like his lackey, and when the guy died, he kind of took over, and apparently maybe even, I think he took some of his files and used that shit for his own, needs. In other words, I've been in the conspiracy phase. I've been in the spiritual phase. I've gone through so much in my life, and I don't think I'm any better. I don't think I'm any worse. I'm wiser because of my experience, but I'm not going to let that go to my head and think that I know better. I envy some people who are younger, who know their path, who know what they want. And I feel bad for some people who are older, who are just stuck in their ways and can't change. But I also, as much as I envy the young person for being flexible and being able to do what they want, there's part of me that knows that being balanced and having a routine and ritual in your daily life can be so much more rewarding. So I play the long game. I don't go out and like burn myself out. When I go out and party, I don't take too much. I don't drink too much. I try to keep it always balanced.
I want my beauty sleep. Even if I'm taking acid at a dead show, I'm like, I got to get to bed by dawn and at least sleep 5 or 6 hours. I'm just, it's important to me to take care of myself in certain ways, but it's that kind of religious ritual of routine. And in religion, there is routine. In our rituals, there's routine. Religion becomes part of our ritual, but if we don't have religion, then our rituals can become very self indulgent, such as consuming a lot of substances, you know, drinking too much, partying too much, smoking too much. I'm a connoisseur of many substances, but I always moderate and never go too far. Okay, sometimes. But back to the discussions and arguments. What good is a discussion if everyone agrees? What good is a debate or argument if everyone on stage feels the same way? It lacks insight, it lacks depth, it lacks any substance whatsoever. And I feel like society's just being fucking gaslit by all groups. And the people that are feeding this, I hate to say this, and this will sound conspiratorial, but I am 100% convinced, not even 99% convinced, because you'd be a fool not to realize that all governments around the world, in most governments that are anti-US, they will have a sect of people, at least a small group, working all day long on computer, on computer, to basically spend their entire day trying to infiltrate social media networks in the US, calling themselves Bob Johnson, and leaving an inflaming incendiary comment. Even if they can't speak good English, they might copy and paste other incendiary comments that got responses, or very well set up an AI bot to go and copy and paste the same comment on 1,000 videos and get everybody infuriated and arguing in the comment section instead of actually doing anything. And that's what we're doing these days. People are armchair activists. Like I mentioned earlier, being a liberal, I know people who consider themselves, defenders of freedom and justice warriors, but I didn't see them at any of the protests. They're the kind of people who are the armchair warriors. I was out there during the Science March. I was even down there during the 2020, protests, which turned into riots. But I won't go into that. It was very overblown. They made it sound like Antifa was burning the city down, and it was complete bullshit. At one point, there was a small group of hooded people who were going around and causing problems. But it was a small group. Probably less than 20 people. I saw them, and I have video of them getting on all their black shit because I was down at Pioneer Square in Portland filming that shit on June 2nd, 2020, right before the shit went down and we all got tear gassed. I have so much footage of that night, and it's like you see that most people were there for the right reasons, but then people were enraged. COVID had happened. We had a lot of, mandates and lockdowns, and people were upset and they wanted to take it out. And that's the important thing to remember. When a large part of society is angry and frustrated and they feel like they have no other choice, something snaps. And that's why if we don't take care of each other, take care of our country, our economy, wherever you live, then we're going to be in for some shit. So, where are all the people out there who want to tell us how to lead a better life rather than how to lead a life their way or buy their product or their fucking vitamin supplements? Where are all the people out there who are just doing things for the right reason? And they are out there. I would say, if you can find a few good people who discuss things, who can share a few other good people with you, eventually you can build a good list of podcasts and videos to watch. But I feel like it's hard for us not to get wrapped up in the controversial shit. So, for example, on YouTube, I used to watch quite a few channels that had to do with, controversial shit. There was a few, I don't really want to go into names. Let's just say within the last 5 years, at least a half dozen really popular channels have started just using voiceovers, getting somebody who sounds like them, and now it's even worse. They're just using AI. And I'm sure most of you have seen by now a video of somebody using AI as a method of making a complete video from start to finish. And if you listen to it, you can't tell the difference. Most people won't. Even if you can, a lot of others won't. And therefore, I feel like we're hitting a point now where it's going to be more and more difficult to distinguish original content. It's going to be harder and harder to get real, authentic views. I mean, if you went back in time, 20 years, or go back in time like 40, 50 years, and you were to introduce a green screen to somebody who had never seen one, they would think that that's fake, And eventually we grew to understand green screens were important. As you can see, like the green screen I have behind me is very elegant, has a lot of flowers and floral patterns in it. And, oh shit, I need to change clicker. No, I don't. This is my guitar setup. I'm out in my little guitar building area. This is a bass guitar I'm working on right now. Look at that texture, isn't that funky? Haven't quite figured out exactly how I'm going to... I really like this one. I do. I've got like 9 or 10 guitars that I haven't finished, but that's neither here nor there. When I do have them ready, I'll be putting them up for sale. And my buddy Kevin there, who was commenting, he also makes guitars. And they are beautiful. Better than mine, even. Better than mine. Where were we? Okay. Blessed man. Much love. Leslie says, I am not religious, I am spiritual. I'll just say I had to leave that one behind too, because it's been so abused by people who want to sell you chakra medicine and everything else. I went through, like, I'll talk about spirituality all day long when it comes to like discussing different Buddhist principles or Hinduism or, the practices that have been absorbed into Western culture. But it's kind of like my study of aliens and ghosts. When you learn too much, you get let down because you realize a lot of it's bullshit. And it's hard because a lot of the gurus, at best, they're delusional. They'll tell you what practice worked for them, but it doesn't mean that it's right for everyone. And the same goes for religion or anything else. But it's hard because spiritual, it's just such a wide blanket. I don't know what to think about that one. I feel like, to me, my spirit carries through in what I discuss. Even if I sound abrasive or I'm, have something to complain about, I feel like that's part of my spirit. I thought about this on the way home from work. I'm like, I'm not going to pretend to feel ways I don't. Because every day it comes up when I'm driving on the freeway and coming home in traffic. And some asshole gets in front of me in the fast lane for no reason. Something like that. For example, there's a guy in the middle lane and you're driving in the fast lane and you're getting closer to him and all of a sudden he just gets over. No particular fucking reason. There's nobody in front of him. There's nobody behind us. Just an idiot. Somebody who's just not paying attention. And for me, I'm like, I don't know their situation. Don't be frustrated with idiots. But I can't help it. The point for saying that is because, to me, I feel like what I've always learned is to be tolerant and accepting and understand people and be patient. Patience is like not one of my strong points at all. I'm pretty bad about it. I tend to just want to get where I'm going. And once I get there, what do? Fucking nothing. I work or I'm at home. It's like, and I know this consciously. So there's a side of me that feels like, I guess the point I'm getting at with that little discussion was there's always been this illusion of the stoic spiritual man, and from the man's point of view. And it's just not reality. It doesn't endure. You find eventually you get into situations where you have to be aggressive, for example. Like, could you be passive your whole life? Well, only if your family wasn't attacked on the streets while you were walking. If that happened, you'd probably have to get aggressive. So you've got to be a tough guy too. And that was one of these issues that when people start talking about masculinity and being a man, they get ridiculed. They talk about toxic masculinity and guys don't need to be tough. Sure, in a lot of places they don't. You can be a weak ass man who can't stand up for himself or do anything to defend himself or his girl or his guy, whatever it might be. But when you really get down to it, most people know that knowing how to protect yourself, defend yourself, and get fucking nasty when you have to, even if you got to carry a fucking barnyard shank, it's just part of life to protect your own life. And I don't think people look at shit realistically. So sometimes this toxic, quote, toxic masculinity really is just men practicing their toughness for when they need it. We have no problem with masculinity when it's in the military. Well, a lot do. I do. I have an issue with sending kids off to war, but I'll drink to that. I had a good friend, Ben, in high school, and I haven't seen him in years. Last time I saw him, he had been like 10 years, and he'd gone off to Iraq. We used to take acid together and go out and party and have fun. And he disappeared. Found out he went into the military, went into the army, went to Iraq. He was a 50 cal gunner in a Humvee. They hit a roadside bomb, and everybody in his whole unit died except him. So he was probably a little shaken up. Never the same, you know. It's really fucked up. I'm not a supporter of war, and I don't think that that's being a tough guy. I honestly think that that's just kind of being hoodwinked. It's sad. I'm going to go back to the comments now. Pol Pot. I just saw Pol Pot. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that. That was who I was thinking of. One of the guys. But there's another guy from China. I think it was. He's very revered there still, even though he cost like something like 40 million people to die from starvation. But here's the thing I want to make clear. Whether it's communism or capitalism, all those decisions that are made are usually done with good intention to make things better. The truth is, you can make short-term wealth, but everybody knows, even the rich people who make this shit happen, they know that if the average worker gets fucked and dies off, they're not going to get paid either. We need to keep production flowing. That's why I was so shocked during COVID when everybody was okay with shutdowns. You would think the billionaires would be the ones out there screaming to keep the machine moving. But then I heard this one guy speak who was a guy in an economics forum who I guess he went viral the other day for basically saying the quiet part out loud, that they want to get unemployment up to like 40-50%, so people start suffering and really feeling the pain, to acknowledge that the workers aren't in charge, that it's not an employee's market. The bosses are the ones in charge, because we're at a weird point right now where employees have a lot more say than they ever have in the past, and the corporations are scared as fuck. Because to me, if you have a bunch of employees and you want to organize a union, and your company, Amazon, is actively trying to prevent you from doing that, or Starbucks, it makes you wonder why. You know, it really does. It's like, well, if the people want it, let them get it. You know, I mean, the employee does speak. They're the ones that do the work. Yeah, some complicated shit as well. I don't know what to think about much anymore. I try to be pretty balanced and fair. I try to be kind. I try to study things as much as I possibly can before I make some stupid claim, which is probably why I don't make many claims. But I found that a lot of what I'm seeing out there is a strong projection of some of the discussions I listen to, and I'm fascinated with one-on-one discussions that are like at least an hour and a half long. When somebody who is questioning somebody else's intentions can lead me to a different thought. I put it this way: I don't like Elon Musk at all, and it's not just because he's rich. I just think he's an arrogant, pompous idiot who is focused on getting to Mars, and I don't give a shit about Mars. But so many people like him that I tried to take a second look. I was like, I need to be honest. Okay, maybe there's something about this guy that's redeeming. And so I listened to his interviews. He did one with, I think, Lex Friedman, one with Joe Rogan, I believe, and I think a couple. He's done a few, and I've tried to listen to him talk, but he didn't earn back any of that credibility to me. I watched him buy Twitter and change it to X, which every single person I've heard is confused about. I've never heard one person stoked to say, right on, it's called X now. Like, it's just not even a thing. It's weird to me. It's, to me, how the richest man in the world, who is trying to be the most in touch and aware person in the world, always using social media, is so inept at actually just having a normal discussion or leaving a normal comment. It's weird. The world's weird. People are weird. And that's okay. But I wanted to understand the guy. And I still haven't been able to figure out what it is about him that's redeeming. To me, I just don't see anything. Except when I've asked people, and that's the point here, they always tell me that he wants to, help the world, help with green energy. But he says he hates buses and public transportation. And instead of making a tunnel with a train in it, he wanted to make a tunnel with Teslas in it. And look, I get it. We're combining capitalism with the illusion of social change. Things are just getting worse and worse in the cities, and it's hard not to become cynical. I try really hard not to become cynical. You know how many videos I start? I want to make a video about a topic, and I'll sit down and make it and just not even try, because I'm like, that particular topic isn't worth the time to talk about. And that's, I think, why I should do more live casts, so I can just talk about all the shit that's on my mind. But sometimes I'll make a rant, I guess, and do that. But that brings me to, who gives a fuck what I say? You shouldn't care about my opinion. Shouldn't care about what I tell you is true or false. You should definitely always do your own research. And don't assume that anybody has it better than you just because they come across that way on the internet. I've been struggling a lot lately with some of my own thoughts and kind of a mild, I'm not going to call it depression. I refuse to label these things. I've just been doing a lot of thinking and thinking about what I want to do with life. And I heard this podcast today, which inspired me. And coincidentally enough, it was a guy who he's like a endurance athlete. He's like one of those guys that is a super athlete, like does these crazy swims and runs. But he was so dorky and geeky. It was like a 2-hour long podcast with Chris Williamson. And he was so like, I understood what he was trying to convey. This is one of the most important things with listening to people these days. Listening to the message they're trying to convey without trying to allow their personal quirks and bullshit to get to you. I'm sure I have plenty of quirks, but I want the message to come across. And I think that once in a while you hear something that's very inspiring. It really makes you just want to become a better person, be a better person, improve your life. And that's very rare for me. Sorry, I'm grabbing a brew. But back when I was younger, that was psychedelics that did that. And for the last 30 years, I would say, it's been over 30 years now, that I've been taking various psychedelics at least once a year. Usually at least twice a year. And I don't take them just because it's fun. I take them because it's fun and it helps me rediscover my true self and who I am and how I feel. So LSD to me is a renewal process with other people. Psilocybin mushrooms, which I haven't taken in a couple of years, even though I've had access to them the whole time. I have a friend that grows them. I just can't do it. I need to find the right time. And I'm a lot more cautious than I was. I got foam on my shirt from work. Much more cautious than I ever was when I was younger. I was even cautious back then. I limited how many doses I would take or mushrooms, but I've taken up to a quarter ounce of some really strong mushrooms, and I took a 10 strip of acid. I mean, I've had some interesting experiences and found that for me, it's about that one moment where I have that epiphany and realize that I'm a human. I'm here for a limited time. I don't know why I'm here, and that's okay. And I just need to keep on moving, keep pushing. The last two businesses I started were after a trip. One was, I think, mushrooms. The other one was, I think, just taking some Molly. But the point is, when your serotonin's flowing and you make a plan, I just like to, on the side burner as a recommendation for people, if you're trying to program your mind, sometimes during a trip, if you have an intention set, that can change your life. I'm not sure how much we can even talk about psychedelics anymore, because it's funny, when I started my YouTube channel, if I talked about psychedelics, they'd put it up as adult content if I was lucky, but a lot of it got deleted and was considered harmful content. Now all of a sudden, 10 years later, a lot of those videos that were deleted, YouTube would probably allow, because harmful content is now considered healing content. And think about that for a minute. Talking about psychedelic mushrooms 10 years ago would get my channel terminated if I said the wrong thing. Talking about it today, I mean, sure, if I promote it for kids or something, it could get it deleted. But generally, nobody cares. The same way the cops don't care about weed or mushrooms anymore, and how things have changed so much. But what does that say about our society? How much our morals change based on society accepts it now, so whatever, like, have the morals really changed, or just the laws? I talk too much, don't I? Well, that's why I have y'all to listen to it. I wish my phone would fucking stay in one place, though. I know how to do it. There we go. I'll just push this against it. Boom. Problem solved, yo. Check this out. This is a guitar neck that I was working on. It's maple, but the head, you can see it has a scarf joint. That's how you connect the head of a guitar so you can get the slope. But that's my Carpo bird. You can see it says Carpo here. But I carved it out with the Dremel, and it's all ready for a fretboard. The fretboard is on a separate neck, so I can carve it. Let's see if I can get this shit fucking organized. There we go. The fretboard is really where it's at. So my buddy Traveler, who, if any of you remember Traveler, leave a comment. He was my buddy Joel, who helped me harvest my 2015 crop of cannabis, which we uploaded the whole video of, like, all these crazy, like, 8-10 foot plants that we harvested. It was a really fun time. He came over and gave me some of this maple he gave me a chunk of maple. I have a few chunks, but one of the pieces I cut down and turned into this. And honestly, since it's a live cast, you probably can't see very well. Don't mind the pencil marks, but the rest of it, you can see this is flame maple, because it has these crazy, shapes and flame designs in it. In person, it looks gorgeous, and it's so smooth that you can actually use your fingernails to rub it smooth without even needing any type of coating or resin or anything. Although I will probably put a protective finish on it before I turn it into a guitar, because about a year and a half ago, I decided I was going to start making guitars to make a living, and or at least, yeah, make guitars. And I made guitars, but I never made it into a viable career because of that thing I said earlier, which is not believing in myself, which is imposter syndrome. I couldn't bear to bring a guitar onto the market that I couldn't 100% feel and guarantee would last a long time. I make resin jewelry. I have a couple $1,000s worth of resin jewelry. I have like 50 necklaces, 50 or 60 resin bracelets with like cannabis inside them, ones with moss. I mean, I've spent all this time making them and then thought, well, there's a possibility that they could bend or break in the cold or the heat. So I just, I can't sell them. I have to do something and fix them. And I just let them sit. I have a bunch of meditation benches and they have a couple like imperfections within the finish. And so I never sold them. I think back to what I really want out of life. I just want to be an artist and sell random art, make a living. I think it would be awesome. And I could do that. I could start my own channel, my own Etsy shop, whatever. Part of it is because I don't want to pay Etsy fees. That's part of it. But it's more than that. It's very hard for me to figure out how to feel confident in the things that I do. It's weird. It's really fucking weird. Anyway, I'm going to continue and read the rest of the comments. Kevin says, Prof next week. Oh, dude. Next week when? Hopefully it's not this week because I got a funeral to go to on Saturday. V for Vendetta, says David, a.k.a. Logan. Thank you, my friend. I just watched that movie again quite a while ago. I guess like 6 months, but such a good movie. V for Vendetta is phenomenal. Might as well be a baby eater. Behold a pale horse. Yes, the same William Cooper. Alan Watts. I love Alan Watts. Yes, Leslie, you are correct, my friend. So are you saying you're an AI program? Hello, Leonard. I might be an AI program. I don't fucking know, dude. I've been wondering that too. Am I AI? I wouldn't be surprised. Or would I? I don't know. What? A neck from a marten I accidentally backed over that needs a home. Oh, that's sad, Kyle. I'm sorry to hear that. Maybe I could turn it into another guitar. Harrison says, I'm trying stoicism. Oh, well, if you are, just make sure that you don't assume that it means that you're never bothered. That's the only quick note I could give on stoicism, because I tend to try to follow stoic practices, which basically is no practice. It's just being okay with whatever happens. But there's something that's always left out of stoicism. If there's any one point that's left out, it's that it's okay to cry. It's okay to get excited. It's okay to get angry, and it's okay to laugh, especially. Stoics tend to try to keep their emotions in check. I would say also, on a second note, it's very easy to be a stoic in America for a lot of people because they take so many pharmaceuticals and antidepressants or anxiolytics that it just shuts their brain down to the point where they feel no emotions. Oh, I'm stoic, I take Prozac. No offense if you take it, but that's not stoicism. It's being able to be stoic without drugs to dull your senses. So I practice stoic thinking, but I don't consider myself a stoic, if you will. I like to cry and laugh and get upset sometimes. So I guess it's a balance. Oh, Leonard says, what's with the vertical filming? YouTube said I should do it that way because it was recommended, and that portrait would be in. YouTube changed their I don't know. It's probably because the resolution's so bad they get more in on vertical. I don't know. the whole like intro to set up your live thing changed, and I was not wanting to sit and figure it out, so I thought it'd be fun. And it's the modern day. Oh, and they said it'd be better for shorts for some reason, but I don't give a fuck because shorts suck and they drive me nuts. But you don't need to see my ugly mug anyway. What's normal? Good question. Let's see. Anybody new show up? Hello, Phoenix. Yes, I'm still making guitars. Did you miss the? That was probably before week from Wednesday. Bye, Phoenix. Mind Shifter. And hello, Jaya. Hi. Yeah, you're high, girl. You're high. Or guy. I don't know. Whatever. Anyway. Now I've caught up with comments. I'll get to my points because it's already been an hour and I didn't want to make this too long. You know, I like to do live casts, but I also have to make dinner and stuff like that. I really just wanted to cover kind of this. A few people, as I mentioned, listening to podcasts, especially for young men, that help you to become a better man, not a man who complains about. Let's put it this way: if you have some sort of a guru or somebody who you listen to on YouTube or elsewhere, and you think you've got your Andrew Tate out there, and you think this is how to be a man. If they're pointing the finger at another group or other individuals as your problem, that's a good identifying marker that they're probably full of shit. Now, sure, you can say that the issue is, greed or, billionaires who take advantage of the small guy. But when they're pointing the fingers at groups, whether it be religious or political groups, you're missing the whole point. And it seems to be that a lot of folks, when people start to stop listening to them, they claim they want to be that they're being canceled. Let me say I have mixed feelings on this, and this will be for a future video, but yes, people are silently canceled. Professors are fired for their thoughts on various topics, as non-controversial as the fact that men are men and women are women, and we actually have different attributes and characteristics. Oh my God, how controversial. And that brings me to, where are all the rational voices? The whole point of this podcast. What the fuck is going on? Why are people so ignorant right now? It's because the voices are drowned out by, oh God, so complicated. It's so hard to understand. I don't mean for you, I mean for me. Just trying to figure all this crap out. And it's a nightmare out there, dude. It really is. I want to speak up about certain topics, but then we have this self-censorship, which on the top of the self-censorship, it's like a fucking, the actual censorship, having your shit blocked, having your shit turned off or turned for adults only. I don't mind if YouTube wants to make a video talking to young men about being a man. Want to make it adult content, but then a video talking about murder and mayhem is just open to anybody to watch. Like, their rating system is obviously biased against anything that might be considered a, quote, right-wing talking point, as I mentioned earlier, which is just a really dumb thing. And it's time we stop thinking about wings and realize you need 2 wings to fly a bird. And if we want this bird to fly, we're going to need to get together. We're going to need to stop thinking as individuals and thinking more as a collective, but not as a commune. And that's where the complication lies. There are some benefits to everything. Communism, socialism, capitalism, even having kings and queens, bloodlines of people who just rule. Like, I understand there's value in everything, in all methods, but dude, it's a little out of hand now. We're living in a weird time when people need to take over and figure their own shit out. Be more independent. Stop looking to authority for answers. And thank you, Mindshifter. I really appreciate that. $5 donation. You are fucking awesome, man. I really appreciate it. Fundamentalism is cancer. Not just that, Mindshifter, but dogma. Dogma is cancer. It's the biggest issue with any belief system is the dogmatic beliefs within that system, which cause people to argue about stupid shit. Like even within the church, I think one of the greatest examples is seeing what happened to the Christian church, the original Christian church. Originally, at one time, way back in history, there was one group of Christians who believed a certain way. They said, we believe in Christ and this is what we believe. That group branched off. They say that every religion starts as a cult and then it becomes inspiring and other people take it on. Well, then the cult split off into other cults and it becomes more and more religions to where it's so large it's hard to know where it even came from. And I'm not here disparaging religion. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm sure some of you weren't here, but I respect it a lot more than I ever did. I understand people need a connection to the world. They need a connection to something bigger than themselves. I sure as hell do. I believe the universe is conscious and aware. Do I believe it really cares about me as an individual? I don't know. That remains to be determined. I don't try to pretend that I understand karma or death or life, but I follow Alan Watts when he says, you know, his line of thinking on death. He's like, when people say, what's it like after you die? Just say, what was it like before you were born? It's the same thing. I think that scares the shit out of people. I really do. But you have nothing to lose. Doing the best you can in this life. Doing what you can. And don't be held back by other people's dogma. Dogma is a fucking nightmare. So, you know, as I said, yes, Mindshifter, fundamentalism is a huge problem. Thank you, Adam. I appreciate the comments. Thank you, Leonard. XGO1010. Let's see. Question mark. Question mark. That's a good question. People need an operating system. Yes, they really do. That's a great point. I don't know if you meant it the way that my brain is processing it, but basically that's what religion gives people, is some sort of an operating system, something to go by, something to believe in that gives them some sort of a connection to each other. Because it's not about God. It never was. It's about community. If you think about what heaven is labeled as, it's going and seeing your loved ones, right? It's not living in eternity by yourself. It's funny because this is something I've noticed over several years here. Religion tends to be the belief system that brings people closer to other people in community and family. Whereas spirituality in the last several years has focused on me. Isn't that weird? I'm going to be enlightened. I'm going to align my chakras. You know, I'm going to be healed. Even if people are healing others through Reiki or something, they're saying, oh, look what I do and look what I can do. And look at these necklaces and beads I have. You know, we all like to be decorated and think we're important. But I found that the spiritualists, the ones that claim to be psychics, are just frauds and full of shit. This is my opinion. I don't think that all psychics are frauds. I think a lot of them really believe what they're saying is true. And I know this will bother people because at least probably 1 out of 3 of you have probably believed in or have been to a psychic. A lot of people do. I think of going to a psychic as like having a guy build your house who wears a blindfold while he builds. He's been doing carpentry for 20 years, but he does it with a blindfold and you can't quite see what he's doing. It's almost like more dangerous to fuck with that kind of spirituality when you don't understand the nature of what you're doing. I've done a Ouija board, and let's just say it was an experience that led us to throw it in the fireplace and burn it. And who knows? You know, we were young. It's not like any of us could have come up with a 17th century name like that. But Maybe our subconscious. I mean, of course it's subconscious because it's got to work through your subconscious. But there's something to be said about the other realm, the other world. And I don't really even know how to talk about that topic when we get into dimensions and ghosts and all that, but it's fascinating shit. Spirituality seems to go very deep within our roots. But when I say spirituality, what I mean is a connection to the universe that is beyond dogma. We have to define what spirituality means. It means you believe there's something greater than yourself. Basically, to me, spirituality is having that you believe that the universe is not just something that came about by random chance and that you're here by random chance. That's materialism, and I don't understand that. When I was younger, I said, I don't believe in God and I don't plan to, and I'll never be religious. But I said I would love to convince myself through scientific knowledge and discovery that God is most likely real, right? And that's what I didn't set out to do that, but enough data has come in now to where I'm confirmed that the universe is aware of us in its own way, conscious in its own way, in a way that we will never understand. We are just mere mortals. And when I try to explain this in words, I fall flat. It's just dumb to try to explain God or religion. That's why using names, whether it be God or Yahweh or Yod-He-Vav-He or Yeshua. My name is Joshua, by the way. I might be the second coming of Christ. I really doubt it. But if I am, then I'll be sure to try to walk on water next time I'm out, on the river. That's a joke, of course. I don't ever desire to offend. That's something I really try not to do on this channel. I just hope the Christians who watch my channel are lighthearted enough to be able to take a joke. But if not, I guess that's on y'all. I tried. Asmodeus. The narcissism epidemic. Here we go. I'm flipping through the comments. I need to point at the comments to let y'all know. I needed this, by the way. I do these live casts not because I make money off of them or anything. I need the psychological connection to people. I need philosophical discussions. I don't have a lot of people in my life who I have a few friends and I have my family, but they don't want to hear my bullshit rantings. And I just love being able to talk to people, without just boring everyone. So you can choose to tune in. I guess my friends and family could come in and just leave. I'll be like, hey, if you want to walk away while I'm talking, feel free. Narcissism in human being. Agnostic. Yeah, I used to use that term, Chris. I did as well. Agnostic, for those who don't know, and I'm sure you all do, but it just means that you don't have a particular belief system, but you're willing to believe if somebody can prove it to you. It's like show me the money. That's how I always describe agnosticism. But the problem I have with that is that I don't understand what would be good enough evidence. I thought about this the other day, and then the day before that, and then probably the day before that, and 10 years ago. What if Jesus, let's say, what if you turned on look at your phone, your computer, and there's some sort of a news announcement that Jesus had just descended from heaven, was standing on the White House lawn, and walking across some water and healing the sick. Do you think people would believe it? Now let's just say, even if people got in their cars and traveled to DC, went out to see it for themselves, do you think they would believe it still? It's very similar to the aliens. I think there's a particular belief system that it's going to be a false flag where the aliens invade the U.S. So if aliens do land on our planet, for example, a huge segment of people would believe that it's a false flag and that the government's projecting. This is a small group of people. Don't get me wrong. It's probably in the low millions worldwide. But I think it's Project Bluebeam is what they called it. I don't know if that's the one or not now. I get them mixed up, but uh, the idea to fake an invasion, just the point is people are more likely to believe they've been fooled than to believe something. Yet, Mark Twain says it's easier to fool someone than convince them they've been fooled. And it's a weird paradox. I am a skeptic. I will believe things when I see them, when I have evidence for them. As for what that evidence encompasses, depends on the situation, depends on the amount of evidence required. And yes, I do believe extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence to prove, but that evidence will be determined according to each individual. It's not about what you believe versus the world. It's about what do you believe and what can you benefit from? What is actually helping you to succeed in this world? Because ultimately, we're all stuck here for a little while, and we're trying to figure this shit out together. It's really fucking hard sometimes. Yeah, it's sad that if people speak their true feelings, they really just kind of get pushed out of the paradigm. And I've noticed this more and more. And this is why the title of this live cast was about, I guess where are all the truth speakers, where are all the people speaking their minds, is very easy to find. It's just that they get buried. There are some great channels, and there are some great thinkers, some great podcasts, some great philosophy. But a warning, you're going to hear shit you don't agree with. If you're a liberal like myself, which I'm sure some of you are, because a lot of folks who are, right-leaning probably got sick of me a long time ago. But I'm hoping that I can connect with people on that level to separate politics from just being human. To say, I'm here with you as a human being, and I want a good, strong country. Many of us want, strong borders. We want strong, protections for people. We want workers' rights. We want all the same things. Most people want the same shit, whether you're left or right. And why do people have to be so divided on this? Because it's easier to find an enemy. And this is why I kind of an epiphany I had a while back about why the devil matters. People need Satan. It's a weird thing that I didn't understand when I was younger, and I realized that human nature, psychologically, people are predisposed to believe that somebody is to blame for their problems. People don't dare blame themselves. So if they can't blame the devil, they're going to blame the government, they're going to blame their neighbors, they're going to blame the liberals, whoever it might be. And this is very crucial for us to understand, I think. This is one of the big takeaways, I hope, from this live cast, that if anybody's watching, that what you think people think, they probably don't think. I've heard so many people say all conservatives are idiots and they're all racists, they're all bigots, whatever it is. Shut the fuck up. That's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. No, they're not. Just like not all liberals are good people. It doesn't matter what you identify as. People switch on a fucking dime. So it means that people are just believing what they want to believe in order to fit into a group because it makes them feel more comfortable. I don't blame people for that. But I do blame people for being severely misinformed on topics. I've seen so many interviews on college campuses with people about policies that they believe are important that they don't have a clue about. They're asked these questions, do you think this? Well, yeah, of course. Well, why? Oh, I don't know, just because. Like, never in history have people been less informed on what's actually going on. And that's not just because it's hard to find data, it's because people are ignorant and they choose to be. If you look back at this is easily provable. Look back at there's a channel on YouTube called David Hoffman. He's a filmmaker. He's an old guy. I've been following him since he first started his channel way back when. And he's just this old guy in his like 70s who you can tell he's awkward on the internet. I love it. You know, he's like, I'm David Hoffman, filmmaker, and these are my videos. You know, he's got this kind of old man attitude, and his videos are great. He's a film producer and maker that from back in the day, 50s and 60s, 70s, he made a bunch of videos, and then he had a fire at his house, and he lost most of his stuff. And so he shares his remaining reels. Some of them are interviews from the media, politics, whatnot, but some of them are just college kids being interviewed. Or high school kids being interviewed, or even grade school. How do they feel about Vietnam? How do they feel about, civil rights, or what's going on at the time? The grade schoolers back in the 60s could articulate themselves better than most high schoolers today. It was discussions going on in high school that were like deep, racially, this is why it's so annoying to me when people say racism is horrible right now. I'm like, there are racists, but we have come so far. Like, these discussions, you can hear the difference in the inflection in people's voices. But the point is, even back in the 60s, there were blacks and whites and Mexicans all sitting in groups talking about these things. Civil rights have been an issue ongoing from the beginning of time, as long as people have been divided, I should say. I'm sure that there was an issue with the Neanderthals and the Homo sapiens. It's like, you're biased. The truth is, we all have a little bit of bias within us, and all we can do is learn to control it and understand it. But, it's way overblown. We're causing more fear within each other in our world than is actually warranted, in my belief. So I'm going to go back and flip through the comments here, because I don't want to get too far behind, and I'm going to leave pretty quick because it's been an hour and a half. I identify with anarchy. What is an agnostic? Without knowledge. Yeah, there you go. There were great answer there. Etymology is one of my favorites, the study of words. But the Gnostics, without the A, were a group who believed in knowledge. Look, if you came to my channel 10 years ago, I would have told you that knowledge is the most important thing. And, at least to being able to cope with life and to understand it better. Now I tend to lean towards the heart. I mean, I've always believed the heart was the leader, but I've had to put to practice a lot of the beliefs I have, and see how they work. Honestly, if you try to prove yourself all the time, if you try to win, if you make everything really about competition, you always lose. I joke about competition, and I have no desire to win a debate or an argument. I have no desire to, make other people look dumb. I think people do that to themselves. But sometimes I probably look dumb too. I'm okay with that. I've noticed even some of the most stable people, if they're willing to admit that they're flawed and that they sometimes fail, sometimes they get into a text war that's pointless. Sometimes they end up answering Twitter comments and arguing about shit that's really dumb, which is why I don't use Twitter. These are understandable. As humans, we're looking to prove what we believe to be true. You can't stop that, and you shouldn't. It's just a matter of how you conduct yourselves, the tact that you have, the ability to be stoic in those situations, not let other people's bullshit get to you, and to just be the best person you can be. If you really want more data and more information on how people think, fucking talk to people. Go to a concert and hang out afterwards and chat with people about their interests who have common music interests. go down to a bar and talk to a stranger, or just go onto a chat section, but you're not going to get a true idea of how people think, unless you meet them in person. I have a lot of people on my channel who are subscribers who actually, if I met them in person, we'd probably get along great and have a good time and it'd be cool. But I have never actually met them. So sometimes I'll meet a person in person and want to hang out with them instantly because I know them, because I've looked them in the eye and I know who they are. And that's very important. Oh no, now it's not child friendly. They're probably going to put a restriction on it. It's a live cast. It doesn't matter. I'll probably delete it anyway. I always do. I think I delete like 90% of my live casts before they go live, or before they get posted. I feel like it's one of those things, you're either there or you're not. So if you ever see a live cast coming in the future, you better watch it. It's going to be over. And what I have to say is very important, much more important than your grandpa. Y'all know how awkward it is to sit in front of a camera and talk about shit and pretend you know what you're talking about and to do your best without feeling like an imposter. But curiosity is king. I gotta say, it's the one thing that I've really considered something I'll never give up. Curiosity. I hear a word I like, I hear an idea I like, I look into it, I look it up. That's why whenever somebody tells me a fact or a figure and it sounds sus, then I go, look it up myself. No, I don't go to the first page on Google. It's the internet is where we get most of our data now, but you have to be able to go to actual science websites and then even sort through that bullshit to know what's biased, or government papers, and it's a nightmare. So you start to find that data doesn't really matter. It's just we've built a general consensus machine at least in this nation, where if you want to know what's going on in East Palestine, remember East Palestine? Place where the train crashed, leaked a bunch of toxic chemicals. I think it was polyvinyl chloride all over the place. And actually, I think it was just vinyl chloride. It wasn't polyvinyl chloride yet. But they told people to come back to their houses, that it was safe. And then the studies showed that it wasn't safe. And now they're trying to reclaim some sort of a, have a settlement, or at least have the, shit tested properly. And all the people who came in and tested the soil who were independent said that it's toxic. And the train company came in and said, oh, it's all good. It's all good. I bring that up just off the top of my head because it's one issue that's just being completely ignored while we worry about what's going on with some politician, or what's going on with, oh no, Trump got this or Biden got that. Do we really care about each other? And if so, we should be caring about the actual issues that are happening. And a lot of people do, but a lot don't. A lot of people don't give a fuck. It's not because they don't care. It's because they're not informed. It's because people don't want to take the time to learn what's going on in their communities. They don't want to take the time to learn what's going on in their states or their nation. And I understand that because often I ignore it too. There's just too much. It just becomes too overwhelming. So to sum this up and come to my last 5 minutes here, because it's been a long podcast and I got to go in and get some dinner made. Curiosity is king. Don't be scared of other people's opinions. Don't believe in the idea of platforming people. I think that a good debate, like as I mentioned, some of the earlier debates in the 60s and the 70s, not only did they interview kids, but we had Walter Cronkite, a great neutral reporter. who everybody's biased, everybody has an opinion, but he managed to keep his shit neutral. And that was before the fairness doctrine was eliminated in media. But you could have somebody who's very left, very right, very center, all having a discussion on stage in suits and being respectable to one another, not screaming, not calling names, not coming up with fallacies, oh, but you did this or you said that, but really just sticking to the facts. Yes, people were smarter back then, at least better able to communicate and articulate when it came to being in a group. And that's something we should all practice, and we don't. Anybody can be smart in a comment section. Anybody can sound smart in a text message. But when you're face to face with people and you're having a real debate, it's a totally different story. And I've found this out firsthand a lot of the time. People get mad at me if I don't agree with them on certain topics, and I get that. So I tend to just only talk about the topics that I want. Maybe that's part of the reason why I've had a hard time wanting to interview people. I wanted to do a podcast with a friend of mine, and he said, no, I might just get bothered or upset. I was like, at least you're honest about it, It's like, we don't want to talk about some of the shit that's going on, So I'm going to flip through the comments, give a few final words, and I got to head out for dinner. And cool, no new comments. It's excellent. That means none of you have anything to say. It's beautiful. You're too busy listening to me ramble and rant. I will sip my West Coast latte for a moment. Leave a comment. Ask a question. Don't be afraid. There's 18 of you. You got to have at least one question or idea or something. Don't be shy now. I'm not. I'll always leave a comment. Dissolve NATO. So Putin can't use it as an excuse. Just because NATO doesn't exist doesn't mean nations can't act multilaterally. I'm not familiar with that. If that's something that Putin's asking for, I don't think it's ever going to actually happen. But I honestly, as much as I just going against what I just said, as far as, pay attention to what's going on and listen to discussions, I've been really trying to avoid anything on the Ukraine situation. I haven't watched any of that. I have noticed the biggest propaganda campaign that I think I've ever seen on a war in my life. And yeah, I remember when we went into Iraq and, first it was WMDs, and then it was Iraqi freedom, then it was Iraqi restoration. Really, we fucked that country up. And all under the guise of control. The data has come out now. There have been declassified documents showing that Cheney and Bush and all of the rest of the cronies knew that Saddam had nothing to do with 9/11. Nothing at all. They knew that. It's on paper. This is all fact. That they said we need to find an excuse or a reason to go to war. We need control of that region. It doesn't matter. People don't give a fuck. That I think is one of the biggest blunders ever. And but you look back, my father died from cancer, which we believe was from Agent Orange in Vietnam. And he went to Vietnam for the same stupid reason, because somebody said that it's worth fighting here. And so when it comes to Ukraine, of course I'm a little suspicious. And I think that all of the newscasts promoting this bullshit, it's just shameful. And I've never seen such a, call to arms by Americans. When I drive across the bridge on Sunday, which is supposed to be the only, Saturday, I think it's Saturday or Sunday, whichever day, both days probably, but there have been people all across the bridge going into Oregon with Ukraine flags, holding them up, stand with Ukraine. And it slows down traffic. And all I can think of is, I don't. It sounds harsh. I'm sorry. I do not stand with Ukraine. I don't know anything about Ukraine. Before the last year, I didn't know shit about Ukraine anyway. And I'm not going to buy into the propaganda of just sending, $100 billion plus. I'm not going to get into the numbers, but let's just say that we could fix much of our infrastructure with the money that's being sent over there. And it's very upsetting. It's bothersome. I believe that we need to take care of our own shit right now. And I have an issue with any excuse to make more weapons and send them over there. And yeah, it's pretty fucked up right now. Yeah. What Chris says, NATO broke their word with Russia. They want to set up shop in Ukraine. NATO gave their word they would not set up shop in Ukraine. This is actually true, and one of the aspects that's never talked about, that we had agreed that we wouldn't, try to impose on their borders. I thought about this. Somebody made the point. They said, what if Russia set up shop in Cuba? Oh, wait, they tried that. We know what happened. What if they tried to set up in Mexico, right? What if Russia decided they were going to set up, with a coalition with Mexico? The U.S. would not be having that. But all that aside, that's just making comparisons. We're all different countries. We all operate differently. I just am really sick and tired of justified wars. I should say, I'm tired of unjustified wars posing as justified wars. No matter how much ammo you give Ukraine, they're not going to win. Russia is just too powerful. Russia could end Ukraine in a day. It sounds harsh, but then you become, quote, the Putin sympathizer. Just by talking about this brings me back to the whole point of the beginning of this podcast when I said I'd be called a right-wing, commentator or something. It's like, no, that's not the case at all. These are rational thoughts. Humans are being sent to die. How many humans have to die? If Russia ends up winning, which they probably will, what does that change other than Russia owns Ukraine? What I'm concerned with is how many people are dying. How many fucking civilians and babies have to die so we can try to win the war, knowing that it can't be won? It's bothersome. It really is. Kyle says, what happened to lefties being for peace? That's a fucking good question, Kyle. Thank you. That was something I've noticed over the last couple of years. The left, it blows my mind. The left was always against sending arms, sending weapons, trading weapons. And then all of a sudden, overnight, no, we got to send them more weapons. Not just a few weapons, but hundreds of billions of dollars worth of weapons and aid. But to what end? Do you think Ukraine's just going to declare victory one day? Putin will not lay down. It doesn't matter what you think of the guy himself, but this war is only going to go one way. I guarantee it. I went into the bar that my friend worked at back when 9/11, after 9/11, when we first went into Iraq, and we were watching the news when the shock and awe campaign unfolded, and I was drinking my beer, watching the screen. My buddy was bartending, and I was like, "Oh my God, this is gonna be horrible." He's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "I guarantee this will be another Vietnam. It's gonna last forever." He goes, "Dude, no, this will be over in a week. Mark my words. I promise you." I was like, "This will be another Vietnam, and it's gonna drag out for years." Looking back on it now, we kind of laugh about that because it's a very vivid, distinct time in my mind when I was like almost in tears watching all these bombs drop on such a beautiful nation. Iraq, I have nothing against Iraq. I have nothing against Iran, nothing against any Middle Eastern country. It would be like somebody attacking the US government and having Americans take it personal. I I understand why people are frustrated. The United States has been investing itself in everybody's business for a very long time, like Britain and everyone else. It's kind of the modern day slavery, if you will. That's why slavery is kind of it's been such an ongoing thing that the only thing as Americans we know is the small chapter we had. But compared to the rest of the world, this has been an ongoing issue for a long time. It just comes down to people's personal thoughts about them being more powerful than others, which is pretty pathetic. Because, it's pathetic. Okay, where are we at? I was going to read the rest before I go here. It says, Russia said they wouldn't invade if Ukraine ceded their nukes. That's possible. I don't know much about that, and I've been paying attention as much as I can. Kapuxi says, good morning. What do you think about Maui fire? I'm going to put that one simply. I think it was a fire caused by natural processes of the power lines knocking over, burning grassland, and heavy winds from a typhoon nearby, whipping up those fires and burning down a town that had been in drought for years. If that's what you're asking, if I think it's a conspiracy or it was set on purpose, no, I don't. But yes, I do believe that people are taking advantage of this and instantly trying to buy out the land because there are predators everywhere. So a lot of folks think that it was caused on purpose by whatever space lasers and shit. There's no evidence for that. In fact, most of the conspiracy theories just leave out the basic fact that it would be so much easier to just light a match. I mean, you don't need space lasers to start a fire. It's pretty crazy that becomes like the predominant theory, but it's interesting, and people like a good story. I've been into conspiracy theories since 95 or something, and I pay attention to all of them, but I know 99% of them turn out to be just totally misunderstood. But I think the Maui fires were a travesty. I think that whole area had been warned for a long time. They were in a drought, but they didn't think fire would ever take them out, and it was the perfect storm, if you will. So that's all I know about it. Leonard says the left is now right and the right is left. Truth is not love is not there. Yeah. Mindshifter says, didn't Russia try to set up nukes in Cuba? That was the joke I was making. It was a nod to that. They did, and that's where the whole Cuban Missile Crisis came from. Leonard, you're correct. The left, what I'm assuming you mean by the left being the right is that when I was a kid, the left was all about free speech. Free speech is the very first right listed. When you have the left trying to shut people down for talking, shut people down for what they say, and that brings me back to the beginning of this discussion where I mentioned that colleges were screaming people out of the auditoriums or not letting them even speak at all by claiming, oh, they're a Nazi. It's like, okay, so if that's true, you literally have a Nazi. Let's just say that's true. You have a Nazi coming to speak and debate and be interviewed and questioned. Why would you not want to ask questions? Why would you not want to be informed about why they think the way they think? Or at the very least, be able to berate them. But to kick them out before they even have a chance to speak, it doesn't show that you're right and they're wrong. It shows you're scared of what they have to say because it might override your bullshit. And that's what the left has been doing. They've been actively silencing people. But the thing is, that's what the right used to do. And that's what you mean, hopefully, I think, about the right and the left switching places. The right, back in the day, were the ones who wanted to stop people. You can't take the Lord's name in vain, and you can't say this, and you can't say that. You shouldn't talk about, bad about the government. And, it's the complete opposite. The same way that the left were the ones who were suspicious of the healthcare industry, whereas people on the right tended to be more trusting. Now it's flipped too, because of COVID, because of those shitty bullshit fucking vaxes that, you know, hey, may have benefited some people, but there's no evidence for it. There's no data. There were no double-blind studies done at all on this drug that was given to billions of people. Yet people still are taking the boosters. I don't understand what happened. I don't understand where people lost their minds, and I feel like we are in the craziest dystopia. I don't even know how to move forward in it. Just don't get it. Anyway, I guess I gotta go. I've really enjoyed my discussion with you all, reading your comments, and much love to everybody, and I hope you have a wonderful day, wonderful night, whoever you may be. Make sure you hit the like button if you haven't, because, you know, I guess it might do some shit to the algorithm or some fucking shit. I don't know. Just made me think of that movie. Yeah, I can't remember the name of it now, but I'd like to do more live casts soon, and I might be doing one with my son. And if you guys want to hear any podcast, come back to this live cast and leave a comment on the video afterwards, and let me know if you want to hear any particular interviews with specific types of people. I'd love to go out and start doing interviews with people, because I think that would be pretty awesome for the channel. And I'd love to expand my channel and, you know, make this full time. I don't want to break my back every day at work. I'd like to make a living off YouTube instead. That's always a joke in the back of my mind. Peace and love. And give somebody a hug tonight. Give multiple people a hug if you can. And don't forget, there's nothing left to do but smile, smile, smile. Truth, Leonard. I can do a Zoom too. Bye now.